Hey everybody, looks like we are live. Let's see. Yeah, look at the picture. And how does it sound? Any sound? I hope so. Neckos, how you doing? Good to see you. How's everything? So glad you're here. And then we got Willie. Happy Wednesday. Wendy. And let's see who else. John, good to see you. How are you? So far so good. How's the sound? Sounds okay? So now I think I have, oh, thank you. Yes, I'm 1 year older. So thank you for that. Brad, good to see you. And Wendy, I'm glad you're feeling a little bit better. I hope your smell and taste come back. Your sense of smell and taste come back. That's very important. So we are here for part 3, which is pretty cool. I'm happy for part 3. And let's see. I have to get my monitor away from... Oh, there we go. Because making kind of like a clanging noise. We can't have that. We got enough clanging noises around here for that, you know. So right now we're in part 3, so we're continuing with the light mixture. But now is more time of getting into detail, you know, which is really important to come in with detail and, you know, stuff like that. So good to see you there, Brad. And so I have my light mixture fired in here. And so I do have the 2 airbrush thing going right now, but usually it's around hour number 8 or so that we actually do the 2 airbrush method when we bring in the medium mixture. But I'm not going to do that just yet. I'm going to hold off on that and then we'll go from there. Hey, Steve Leahy, how you doing? Great to see you, sir. Happy December. Happy December 9th, right? Yes, so that's great. And so right now we are going to go ahead and attack this. No time like the present. So I'm glad everything is back with the live stream. You know, last week was kind of interesting. Was it last week that we had the problem or the week after? I'm not week before. Yes, it definitely was last week when we had those horrible issues. And that was just no fun, you know? So, thank you, Steve-O. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. You know, 28 years old is a rough birthday, as you know. Yeah, I don't even do numbers anymore. So, basically, I think I'll do Roman numerals. You know, I think it's something like LV, L1, LIV or something like that. That's going to be my birthday from now on. Only in Roman numerals. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start, you know, always in the eyes, you know, when I come back, you know, from being away from a painting. And so I'll just basically try and... Now these erasers that I have are just amazing. You look how much they erase. It's just incredible. They're actually made, it feels like they're made for our technique. They just erase the ink so perfectly because they're vintage typewriter erasers. And they're available on my website, paintedglyphs.com, if anyone's interested. They're just the best. They're the bee's knees or something like that. And so I'm going back to this one eye on the left, and I am just going to make sure I have those shapes correctly. And I'm going to come in with, I'm going to get my glasses, and we're going to attack this. Let's see. Okay, so we're going in, and it still is a crease right here. So even though it's dark, I'm not going to hit anything with anything darker than the light mixture at this point. Right now it's all about gaining texture and relative value. So that's what we're going to concentrate on right now. So I'm going to concentrate on one of Mr. Wonderful's eyes here. And you know, continue darkening. And what I need to get is my freehand shield. And we are going to make sure when we put the dark of his eyes against the lower eyelid that we're not contaminating the lower eyelid, right? Now his eyes look super dark. That's only because everything around it is so light, but it will catch up. Remember, we don't care about likeness. Nope, we don't care whatsoever. Not until the very end of the painting do we care about likeness. And then it's too late, so you don't have to worry about it. If it doesn't look like him, when you get to the end, it's too late, so you just say it's a portrait of a guy. But seriously, if we stick to the program, 99.9%, you're going to get a likeness. But we got to stick to the program of painting the shapes, because that's all we're doing. We're light detectives. Hey, Monty and Hillbilly, good to see you. So glad you guys are here. That's exciting. Thank you so much for coming by and hanging out with Tim on this Wednesday night. So that's great. So Steve is doing some really amazing paintings over there. I think I saw an Iron Man. Did I see an Iron Man, or is that just me? I think Steve is doing an Iron Man. And it looked really amazing, by the way. Let's see. And John is actually doing a painting of J-Lo with me, and it's just out of this world. And he also did Freddie Mercury. Just incredible stuff. So John is doing some really fantastic things. So remember, what we do in one eye, we have to do in the other. So what I like to do is really blow things up and see if I'm getting the shapes correct. And I can see that I'm not really I'm having too much of a disparity in the values here. And I'll fix that in a moment. But you can see in the actual white of the eyes almost disappears. But we can put a little, we can lighten up the iris a little bit, just a little bit. And then we'll come back and it all makes sense when we come back to continue with the texture. Just like so. So remember, what we do in one eye, you guys know, we got to do in the other eye. So let's go ahead and let's make this happen. Let's do this. Let's get busy. Let's get ready to rumble. Okay, so now we're just going to continue here and darken this eye. Now, one of the things I want to look at is that actually, if I squint my eyes, the irises are the same in both sides, which is interesting because it's in shadow. So that's interesting. So, but I was just, always want to look for relative values from one eye to the next. A lot of times you'll see one eye is darker than the next, especially in the pupils. But here it seems like the pupils are the same. So I'm pretty much going to go with what my eyes are telling me. Here we have a beautiful hard edge right here. He has very deep set eyes, so you don't see as much as the eyelids. And little by little it's going to come together. Iron Man is a test painting using the new stencil from HD Stencils. Wow, that would be great. Hey, there you go, Roy. How's it going? Good to see you. So I'm glad Roy is studying with me, and he is just an extremely talented artist. So I'm very happy to be working with Mr. Roy. So that's cool. And let's see. So as you can see, we're just developing this eye a little bit more. And as we darken the eye, we definitely can see everything else is so much lighter. But by just forcing yourself to stay with the medium mixture, even though your whole soul is telling you, but that's really dark, why don't I go in with the dark mixture? But the thing is, you want to refrain from that, because there's a specific program that we stay with the inks, and that is to stay light. Remember, too dark, too early, too late, too sad, too bad, that sort of thing, you know? And so I'm so glad you made it, Roy. And I'm so glad that Wendy's doing okay. She gave us a scare with the COVID-19, but you know, prayer does work. So I'm glad you're feeling better. Thank God. You know. So is there a reason, Mr. Steve, why you actually picked Iron Man? Is he your favorite Marvel Comics guy? I believe he's Marvel, right? And you will notice that there's very little light value. A lot of this is gray, so a lot of the white's going to be pretty much obliterated. I'm going to put in some of these wrinkles here. Remember, the thing with wrinkles is they're very soft-edged on both sides, right? So you got to make sure you make them soft-edged, otherwise it's just not going to work, my friends. And let's zoom out a little bit, and I'm just going to look over here. There we go. And also, I'm going to squint my eyes and see what the values are of these eyebrows here. And there we go. We'll zoom out. We'll see. Okay, so we have a little better clarity. So now let's go ahead and let's see if we could just continue moving around. So remember, we always start with the eyes, go down the nose to the mouth, and then just move out from there. So we're just going to continue that. So what I want to do right now is sort of work on this center area here, which is the cast shadow. Actually, yeah, this is actually, it's the form shadow and then the cast shadow of the nose. They're kind of both together. Looks like I ran out of light mixture. Let's make that happen. It's 1, 2, 3. Oh, that stencil was set to him by Steve. Oh, Deadpool. Okay, very cool. I've always been a Spider-Man guy, you know, since the beginning. You know, he was always my favorite. And then as I got older, I liked Moon Knight a lot. He was great. Hey there, Chris. Good to see you. How are you? So I like Moon Knight, Daredevil. Also because Daredevil, one of my favorite artists, Gene Cologne, Gene Cologne, actually did the inking for Daredevil back in the 60s and 70s. So that's why I sort of gravitated towards Daredevil too. And as I'm going ahead, I'm just going to look at the edges and see if I could address the edges as well as work on the shapes, sort of attacking two things at once here. And as I'm also looking for the shapes, I'm just going to maybe start to establish some texture. For me, and how I was taught, texture happens when you pay attention to the edges and the values, how they relate to one another, and also the shapes within the shapes, and then the edges will come naturally. The textures will come naturally. So that's basically my training, and that's why I do it that way. Pete Puma, wow, who's that? Oh yes, me too. That was the best, you know. But I used to always go and go to the comic book store, read the comics, but then draw them. That was my big thing. I think that's where my love for drawing people came from Marvel Comics. I wasn't a big DC guy though. I was just always a Marvel guy. Sergeant Rock, he was a real big one. I don't know if he was DC. X-Men were great, and so were the New Mutants. I used to read them a lot. So you see, as I'm going, I'm really worrying about texture, and I'm going to move on over to the other side. No worries, you know. Foghorn Leghorn. Oh man, Bugs Bunny that is true. So Roy Foghorn Leghorn, he's amazing. And Ryan Reynolds is Canadian. That's cool. So yay Canada. So yeah, you know, Bugs Bunny was just incredible. All those like Looney Tunes, the old ones from like the 30s and the 40s, Mel Blanc, they were just amazing. And you know, going that direction, you can't have, hey Patrick, how's it going? You can't have, you know, cartoons, you know, after 3 o'clock when you get home without mentioning Woody Woodpecker. Oh my God, that guy was crazy. So yeah. Woody Woodpecker. Do you guys know him, or am I just too old? But I loved Woody Woodpecker. That was the best. The artwork was just really good back then when it came to animation. Am I right? It wasn't cheesy. And just think it had nothing to do with computers. Just makes it a little more special. And as you can see, I'm starting to get the texture of Mr. Wonderful. So I'm doing the shapes first, right? I'm going to get the shapes. But as I do that, I'm sneaking in some texture here and there. But texture in the sense that I'm just paying attention to the subtle nuances of the shapes, of how they are darker in one area and how they sort of dissipate and dissolve into lighter gray color values. Right? So that's what I'm doing, and then the values the rest is going to come. They will be back Saturday starting January 2nd, 7 to 10. Wow, that is great. That's the perfect time to watch cartoons, 7 to 10. What channel is that, sir? Is that on like MeTV or something like that? Yeah, they do. They really knew how to capture the facial expressions. That's so true. Definitely. I agree 100%. And so there's like a weird dark right here. We're going to get back there and we'll address that. But I do see the disparity is really high, so I'm just going to calm that down right there. And maybe some freehand shield action here. Let's see. Perpendicular and not parallel. Just like that. Bring that nose forward. There we go. Now, when I squint my eyes, I can see there's the value range between these are really too far away. So that means that either I lighten the dark or darken the light. So that's when you ask yourself, what do I need to do? And I can see that I need to darken the light. So we're just going to kill this value here. And also work on the transition tone right there, which is very important. We're going to put that in. Like I said, we don't care whether it looks like Mr. Wonderful at this point. We're just light detectives. That's all we are. And you see, little by little, his character's going to come in, you know. Oh, Marvin tattoo on your left arm. Very cool. Yeah, I loved when Marvin the Martian wanted to blow up the Earth because it obstructed his view of Venus. I thought that was hilarious. Yeah, you know, I'm not sure why. Um, you know what it is? I don't have any background noise going on right now. So there's no air conditioner or fan. So it's real quiet. So I'm sure any noise is going to be a little amplified because of that. But that's a good thing. I mean, the winter's good because I don't have to have the background noise of the air conditioner. And that's been rough every summer, you know, for us all dealing with that. So you see how I'm just slowly, you know, I'm not going to say I'm spending too much time on this side because, you know, I'm going to spend just the same amount of time on the other side. But right now I'm saying to myself, I should develop this a little bit more, just a little bit more. And I think a paper route would be great, Steve. Right now, that, you know, that doesn't sound like a bad job. Except I hated collecting, right? Well, you did the paper route. I did it for a while, but not too much. Later, I got a job at a butcher shop in New York City when I was 15, and I delivered groceries and cleaned the butcher blocks, and you know, that was a very interesting job for a kid, and I was very thankful for that. And when I did get a job, I used to go to Steinway Street in Astoria, and back in the day, there wasn't just big conglomerate stores. There was this little art store on Steinway Street, and every week I got paid, I would go get some art supplies, and I would try all different things, oil painting, pen and ink, pastel, and I get these Walter Forster books, which were great, and that was just fantastic. And so I can see, if I'm looking at the mouth and I squint my eyes, it looks really dark, but we just, rather than lightening it up, I'm just going to catch up everything else eventually. So we'll worry about the mouth in a little bit. So I'm just going to refrain from lightening it up. Sometimes you can make that decision where you want to either lighten it up or, you know, say to yourself, okay, it's dark, but we're going to catch other things up with that later. And I think I'm going to go that route right now. So one of the things that I've been talking about with my students of late and how important is, Raul, how you doing? Good to see you. So glad you're here. March handles the money. Hey, Scott, how's it going? Good to see you, my friend. So glad you're here. You too, Raul. And as you see, we're just going to put some value in that lower lip, and that's going to pretty much bring things back into balance. And let's work on this dark underneath. And the structure of his lip here. And also the surrounding values. And you can see there's a lot going on here, and so we want to make sure that we squint our eyes and get the values first. Now we're not going to hit the exact values with the light mixture, but we're going to get that blueprint. And as we get the blueprint, we'll throw in some edge work and stuff like that. And right now we're kind of getting some of the little nuances and textures as we work on the whole thing there. And Raoul says, "You're on my mind." Wendy says, "Oh, that's very nice." Wow. And but who could so you had the cartoons until like 4 o'clock, and then like I think we started watching stuff like Gilligan's Island, right? Am I bringing people back, right? Channel 5. I was a prisoner to Channel 5 when I was a kid. So we had Gilligan's Island, Bewitched. It was like around 7. And then after that, it was too late and I had to go to bed. So I got up to like Gilligan's Island and maybe I Love Lucy. But I really didn't like watching that as a kid. I love it now. But as a kid, it was too serious for me. See how we're starting to get that nose of his forward, And so that's really cool. Yeah, we didn't. We had 2, 4, 5, 7, 9, 11, and 13. And then once in a while, when the parents were at home, I was able to go on UHF, or VHF. Something like that, VHS or something like that. There was a bunch of channels that, it had a second dial. I remember that, Batman. Oh yes, Batman was great, uh, everyone, no singing yet, but thank you, Raoul. I appreciate that, my friend. I really appreciate it. I appreciate all you guys and girls, how cool you are, and how special you guys make me feel. Especially all the birthday wishes. I really appreciate that. So remember, what we do on one side, we're going to do on the other side. But right now, I just want to continue developing these forms a little bit. Batman was amazing. But I wasn't enthralled with Batman, And I didn't like Tom and Jerry. I really wasn't a PIX guy, I was really Channel 5, whatever was on there. Brady Bunch. I was just a prisoner of Channel 5. And before I start erasing anything, I'm just going to work on some of the values. We worked out some stuff here on this side, and then we'll work out some stuff here. And as I'm doing it, I'm just going to get some texture. So one of the things that I'm talking about with relation to airbrushing, and there's something more important than dagger strokes. Something more important than dots when practicing airbrush, and that is distance. I want you to practice your distance. What does the airbrush do from 1 inch to 5 inches? What does it do in between? What does it do when you move closer as you go forward and going away from the airbrush, turn the airbrush away from the surface as you're moving side to side? That's where that is where the real nuts and bolts are. That's really going to help you. Dagger strokes are great, don't get me wrong, but what I've been saying and noticing how important distance is. Get your distance down and your aim. And oh, thank you, Raoul. I appreciate that so much. Thank you. WHT needed a box with a key. And, oh yeah, we couldn't afford that. That's for sure. Invader Zim. Oh, yes, that is, so Invader Zim, that's interesting. And Monty, when was that on? That's pretty cool. So we are working on really bringing his nose forward, and that's something that's not going to happen right away, but that's going to be our goal. And then we really, remember I always say you want to have the grain of the skin. Now here's a good indication, you know, the skin is kind of moving out this way, and as it moves out this way, it's going towards the light, and when it goes this way down, it's going away from the light. And when that happens, we really reveal that whole grain of the skin. And see how we just pull this down as this comes up, and then this comes out, and we sort of get that feeling of what's happening. Now that's one part, but then there's another shape coming out over here, and so we're going to get that, which is significantly lighter than what's going here. So let's indicate this. And a lot of times when I'm pumping the trigger, the space is really important, right? It's not just the value, but the spaces that in between the shapes are really important, especially when we're achieving skin tone in a more organic way, you know. As a kid, favorite cartoon was Gigantor. Me too, but I could never see it. It wasn't on that much. So yeah, I like that too. Oh, we can only get it as recordings. Oh, very interesting. So that's really neat. So I used to draw him all the time. Very cool. There's so many different shapes going on here, right? So many. And our job is to realize that the face has a lot of forms that are stacked onto one another with stacked forms. And so we want to see those stacked forms and paint them accordingly, having to do with the light, right? So, you know, you just want to realize that it's not just a chin. There's muscles and bone that are creating new forms that are either side by side or on top of one another. And that's what we want to do. We want to basically look for those forms and see how they're reacting to the light, or more like how the light is reacting to them. And then we're just going to continue pumping this trigger, right? We're doing this form and that form. And hey Joe, good to see you. How are you today? Speed Racer. Yeah, that was funny. That was a good... I didn't watch that too often, no. I didn't watch... And that was anime, if I'm not mistaken, right? I think a lot of you guys are younger than me, so you guys got anime more than I did. Basically, I was raised on Bugs Bunny and Looney Tunes, Gilligan's Island, the Brady Bunch. Mom said, don't play ball in the house. And then it was, oh, my nose. And I guess you guys and girls who are older than me know about those references. Grape Ape. Oh, Magilla Gorilla was... Oh, that's one I used to love. Magilla Gorilla. He was fantastic with that cute little girl. So here we are. You see a little bit more. The Lone Ranger. Yes, I loved the Lone Ranger. That was something I would always watch. That was like really important to me. I had the Lone Ranger mask and hat and the 6-shooter. Man, I was really into that guy. He was like a hero. Yeah, that was great. See how we're making Mr. Wonderful turn? Now things might be a little more harsh than normal, but we'll resolve that as we go. like especially in the neck here, we're going to solve this. You know, we don't want to, you know, make wrinkles where there aren't. So we're going to solve that problem right away. We don't want Mr. Wonderful coming in here and seeing his portrait and him being upset. Am I right, guys? So hopefully, I think Mr. Wonderful is going to come by this live stream and he's going to say, wow, that's a good looking painting. So I have a feeling that he's going to be here. So Hong Kong Fooey, yeah, he was a great character, definitely. Mark V diecast, and that's neat. That's really cool. Raoul says, Tim, you inspire me to have more patience, that you tend to rush the color buildup. I watch you as, yes, please. Remember, when you want to go darker, that's when you have to say, I'm going to stay with the light mixture. Or if you're working in color, I'm going to stay light. The same principles that we're doing here work in color. Same, no difference. So just take heart that if you stay light, and see, there's a lot of things I can do with the light right now that if I went dark, it's too late, you know, too dark, too early, too late. And then we can always say too bad, too sad, right? So, you know, stay with that light mixture, keep it going, you know. You can always add texture. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to continue adding texture. And we're going to continue working on values, right? What are the values? What are the relationship between the values? How are we going to bring, how in the world are we going to bring one form on top of another form? How are we going to make it three-dimensional? And those are questions we'll ask ourselves as we go, right? So they need the Walton's Little House on the Prairie I was addicted to, definitely. Oh, thank you, Patrick. I appreciate that. So Wendy doesn't know who Kevin O'Leary is. Mr. Wonderful. He's on Shark Tank. You should watch Shark Tank, Wendy. It's a lot of fun. It's very inspiring. Especially for wannabe entrepreneurs like myself. Mr. Wonderful would call me a wantrepreneur. Wantrepreneur, not an entrepreneur. But I'll keep working at it. You know, I'll keep trying. And I think those are the best businesses to have when you are doing something that is, how do you say, when you're doing something that you're passionate about, then that's when great things happen. And I hope you guys are all doing stuff that you're passionate about. And I think that's, if we can do that, we'll be in good shape. Whether it be after work or as you work, you know, just keep your passions, keep the fire of your passion still burning, you know. You don't like Mr. Wonderful? Oh man. I think it's more of an act, you know, he's the villain of the show, but he's a pretty nice guy. I've seen a lot of interviews. He doesn't seem like the guy on the show, you know, but he is, I do like him. I think he, as far as business, someone needs to tell people like it is. Otherwise, he says, you know, they could be going down the wrong road. Maybe they could pivot, you know. Right? And that's, thanks, Patrick. I think if we follow our passions, we'll be okay. And it's never too late. And that's one thing I tell all my students. It's never too late, you know. You know, now's the time. I don't care what age we are. This is the time when we could really make an impact in our world, leave a mark, right? So it's all what we do today. All that other stuff doesn't matter. And so you see how I'm turning over to this side, and now I'm going to make a conscious effort to go all the way over. And so you see right now we'll pull some of this dark over here. There we go. And so, you know, there's a lot of light voided areas, and our job is to really put in some of the value there and make sure we get the value shapes as well. It's a lot of texture, and you know, we have to start early with the light mixture to get that texture, you know. And thanks, John, I appreciate that. And you know, picking up the airbrush and doing stuff, we don't know who's watching us and who will inspire. So it's always great to do that, to work and to paint and just develop as artists. It's such a daily thing, you know, and it just happens, you know, it happens, you know, when it happens. But if we show up at the easel, you know, when we can, and be consistent, great things will happen. We'll amaze ourselves. Okay, so you see how we're doing the texture. This is where we are going to crop Mr. Wonderful. And, oh, Chris, thank you so much. Thank you, I appreciate that. Steve is an amazing mentor, too. I'm gonna be right back. I'm gonna use little boy's room. Talks amongst yourselves. So I am back, and this time it's personal. And I want to show you something that I worked on with two of my students. And I worked on this with Roy. And just to show you guys the difference of, you know, having to learn, you know, texture with the skin, and then you can do smoother paintings like this. So of course this is Sophia Loren, and we have to learn, you know, the rough skin textures and everything, and then we can paint this and we'll have a better idea. But if we're just painting this and not painting the males, you know, with all the, you know, ruggedness, we're not really going to really fully capture this, because we won't know the difference, right? So that's good. It's good to do, you know, the beautiful smooth females and then the rough and rugged males as well, I think, you know. Oh, the elevator music. I'm going to do that. You know, like in the old days when the television channel would have operating difficulties, please stand by, ba-da-ba-ba-da-ba-da, you know, something like that. That was funny. Definitely should have done something like that, Joe. Next time. That was a portrait of Sophia Loren. Yes. And Wendy would be just as elegant. And you see how, you know, I'm not caring anything, guys, about anything except value and edges. And as I do that, I'm able to put in some bonus texture as well. See this voided area? It looked voided, but it really wasn't. There's stuff going on there, you know? Not kind at all. Just telling like it is, Wendy. And so then, as we're doing that, we're going to see that there's stuff going on this side. And we're going to be pumping that trigger. Control your distance. Know your distance. So, you know, dagger strokes are great, but I want you to know what your airbrush is going to do from different distances. How is it going to blend? What kind of detail can you get from 4 inches? Do you know that? And if you don't, we have to learn it, you know? Oh, elevator music, unsubscribe. All right, Mike, no on elevator music. How's it going, Mike? Good to see ya. And here we can establish some of those lines right there on his eyes. And then, as you can see, I move around a bit. But also, I'm looking to make sure that I'm not just leaving things white, but there's a lot going on. And there's a good opportunity here to get some of that texture. Now, I'm not doing any kind of figure 8 strokes or anything like that. I'm just pumping the trigger and watching, right? Your eyes are going to tell you, you know, with the 1 second rule, what's happening. That's much better than doing some arbitrary, figure 8 or anything like that, you know? You just pump the trigger, control your distance. That's what you want to do. Recovering from a stomach bug. Oh man, I hope you feel better, Mike. Oh man, that's rough. Just put the water feature on when I walk away. That's pretty good. And I'm going to go ahead and start erasing something in there. But first we're going to continue with these areas that seem void, but they're really not. So when you find that the airbrush is not doing exactly what you want, chances are there's tip dry, or you just need to do that check. The tip dry, blow out, loosen the chucking nut, and just make sure that everything is pretty much calibrated. Loosen the chucking nut, twirl the needle, tighten the chucking nut, and that seems to do it. I've been airbrushing about 8 hours today, a little bit, right? So that happens over a course of a long period of time, and you just want to make sure that everything is not sticking, and we're good. So now we're ready. So now the airbrush is working absolutely perfectly. And that happens through the course of an 8-hour day, definitely. Hey Patty, good to see you. How are you? So glad you're here. So today I have my green tea and lime. So you see that? That's really good. Hey Todd, good to see ya. So, in the morning's coffee, and usually in the afternoon is green tea. Not so much for, the whole thing with caffeine, but I just don't feel like coffee in the evening, right? So Joe says, hey Tim, any thoughts on the difference between rendering men and women? Great question. So Joe says he struggles with women sometimes because the skin texture, but so much more subtle as opposed to men. Yes, great question. So that's where distance really comes into play. When we paint a woman, And you see we have these very smooth gradations. So when you have smooth gradations, you definitely want to increase your distance when you're working on the large areas, and then go very light and then slowly go dark. But like right here, this is like 4 or 5 inches away and actually going further away as I'm painting. Same here. That's how you're going to get these really beautiful gradations. So definitely you want to be subtle and stay light longer when you paint women, and when you paint men, you can be a little more bold because, usually men don't have makeup and there's a lot more going on, a lot more skin texture. We're just more rugged all around. So I hope that really helps, because you definitely want to have your distance. That really helps a lot. So that's really the theme of today. I want to hear next week, those of you who are here, that you practice your distance. So how much you spend doing dagger strokes and dots, I want you to practice distance. And trust me on this, you're going to be very happy you did, because then you're going to see your airbrushing just sort of take off, because then you're going to know how to get value, how to get values and gradations. It's all about distance. That's what it's all about. Distance is the answer. So Willie says, Tim, how often do you have to change the tips? You haven't had one go south so far. And you're talking about this guy right here, the airbrush, or the digital on that, Willie? Great question. Oh yes, I saw your practice today. Very cool. That's really fantastic. Well, I didn't see your practice, but I did see that piece that you did, which is amazing. When you drop them and break them. Now, are you talking about the actual needle, Willie? Oh, yeah. They do go. I find that I drop them a lot less, thank God, knock on wood. But what happens is, what really goes, I think, quicker is the cone, right? The nozzle. So they go pretty, well, remember, I'm working about 6 hours a day, 7 days a week. So the needles don't go, but the nozzle inside here goes. And that's only $9, and that's not too bad. But that's what happens, they usually, even though I clean them out well, they sort of start getting stuff in there, and, so that's pretty much what happens. But that's over a long period of time. I would say maybe 3 months I'll need a new nozzle. And with distance, do you need to increase or decrease air pressure? No, not at all. So basically, we'll look here. So let's say we're painting a young lady, right? And we have her cheek right here. So, what I would do is, so we would have the dark of her zygomatic arch right here. And then as I'm lightening it, I'm not going to stay the same distance. I'm going to increase my distance. You see that? Increase my distance and decrease my distance as I get here. But always increasing my distance to get a beautiful gradation. Decrease my distance for the edge, and then slowly increase my distance to get beautiful gradations. See that? Let the airbrush do the hard work. So you don't have to do that. So that's the best way to do it. So increase your distance, stay at the same air pressure, and that will work wonders, Oh, yes, I did vote for you, sir. That's for sure. Now, the thing is, good question about the needles. If you don't bend them, they're going to be great as the day you bought them. But, we drop them and all that. Sometimes we hit the surface with our airbrush tip, and that happens. But, I think as long as we clean them, right, after every use, and don't drop them, you'll be good. for as long as until you drop it, you know, I think. I have never had a needle go without me messing it up, you know. So, okay, so now we're just going to continue on this side here. So you see how it's darker over here? And so we're going to address that. We're going to use our freehand shield right here, because on the side of the face, it's just a bit darker. So I'm going to go perpendicular, not parallel. This right here. Pull that up. There we go. And just like that. Just to reiterate that shape. And then bring this up. Remember, it's much darker down here and then in the corner. And by decreasing my distance, I can make it darker. And pumping the trigger, I could start to get some of that texture that's going on in the face. You don't want to do just smooth when you're trying to get skin texture. And in this particular photo of him, there's a lot of skin texture going on. So pumping the trigger, doing the 1 second rule, paying attention more to the values than the texture, and you're going to be okay. So that's good. You're going to be just fine. And so you think it's a voided area that is just white, but it isn't. There's some texture going on in there. And you're just going to pay attention to the value. You don't want to get lost in texture and get too dark. So you want to make sure that your first thing is the shape, second thing is the value, third thing is to try to sneak some texture in, and then the fourth thing, see how that value actually borders with the adjacent shape, okay? So you have a lot going on, a lot to do, but you want to have a sort of a priority, right, when you're working. So make sure you have that priority, you know. In the very beginning, you want the contour, you want that right. Then you want the shape, right? Then the shape, then you're going to want the edge. While you're doing all the shape and the edge, you want to try and sneak in a little bit of texture. It means just pump the trigger. Just watch as you're painting, right? Don't try and, you know, have to do any kind of weird brush stroke. Just watch while you're pumping the trigger. Your eyes, as you're doing the 1 second rule, are going to find it. Give it a chance, right? Give your eyes a chance to do what your hand will follow. And, you know, when you start light, you definitely can make changes and say, okay, I screwed up there. Now I can maybe darken it or lighten it. You know, bring it into congruence with everything else around it. So right now when you're painting a person, you're not just painting a nose, eyes, and mouth, but everything is relative. And then you always got to constantly ask yourself, as my students know, what am I neglecting, right? What is it that I'm not paying attention to? And since I'm not paying attention to, what do I got to do to bring that up to the same stage as everything else is? And then you can just increase that, you know, do that again, which is the whole thing of, you know, bringing something forward and then everything else coming to the same level, then bringing it forward. So now that we're looking at this, I would have to say that, okay, Tim, what are we ignoring right now? I think we did a lot of really good work in here. So if you ask me, we're ignoring the forehead rather dramatically. So let's go ahead and address the forehead. So it's not just painting the forehead. I really want you all to know that that's the easy way out. It's not just the forehead. So I'm going to show you guys and I'm just going to pull this up for you so you can see that there's a lot going on in that forehead. I mean a lot. So let's see if I can pull that over for you just to show you. So here is a skull, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to bring it over. Let's see. So I'm going to move Mr. Wonderful out of the way. So you see with the forehead, you have a lot of these little shapes that you see when you paint. it really is quite strong. And so that's what you really want to realize, that what you're seeing is the bone structure, these ridges here, and also up here, there it goes back, and then this goes forward here. And then you have this orbital ridge here, this right here, and that's going to be evident when you're painting. So when you talk forehead, just from this, and we haven't even gotten into the muscles yet, there's a really big deal, right? And so let me see if I can touch on the muscles real fast. And so here are some of the muscles, if I can make it big. It's always interesting. So here we go. So look at all those muscles that are going on here. So you see how the muscles sort of wrap around the skull, and they're not just flat, you know, they're thicker in certain areas. So there's a lot happening here in the forehead. So to just leave it as an afterthought is really a disservice to your painting. So I hope that helps a lot. And let's see here. And just a reminder for everyone, hit the like thumb. Oh, thank you, Mike. I appreciate that. Thank you so much, guys. And so Chris says that Mr. Wonderful is bald. That's more of a 5 head. And then Willie says when he used the pache, the tips would just split a lot. Haven't had that happen with the Badger yet. No, I haven't either. So that's a good thing. Yeah, Mr. Wonderful, he has a really good sense of humor about, being bald. He talks about how, when people come on the show about hair products, and he goes, well, I'm not going to use that. And he has a good sense of humor about it. And let's see. Okay, so forehead, right? That's where we are. We're at the forehead. So let's make this happen, guys and girls. And we're going to start with the center. There's a lot going on in the center here. And that is an indentation between the muscles and also following the bone structure. So you see how things are a lot easier when you have that skull in front of you. So you can kind of understand what's happening, right? And you can look for it and say, oh yeah, there that is. That's why that's happening. So definitely you want to be a student of anatomy. Not anatomy class, but just get some anatomy books, look online. Because look at the amount of character is coming out just by addressing the muscles and the bone structure of the forehead. Look how that's happening. And and that's just paying a little attention. And so that wasn't there a lot of times when people are painting and it's not really coming together. A lot of times that is because of that, right? It's because of the forehead not getting the attention it deserves. And a lot of this area that I think is white really isn't. So I'm going to address that as well. And like when you're putting in the light mixture and putting in these grays, these light grays, again, it's an opportunity to do the 1 second rule. Remember 1 second rule, those who are new? 1 second is you look for a second and you paint for a second. And that's what you want to do. And remember, we're not looking for likeness, right? We're detectives. What kind of detectives are we, guys? Just to see, those who are with me a while, they know what kind of detectives we are. And that's so important, it's so important to not worry about the likeness. That's not in our best interest, not at this stage. Not at this stage at all. And I just love this pencil eraser. Guys, $5.95. If you get this, you are not going to be sorry. Look at this. It's just so great. It just works with the color line paper and our ink so much. You want to put it to a nice point. And when you put it to a point, then it's magic, Look, you can just set up just like that. You know, that's not pastel yet. That's this amazing eraser. And so little by little, we can make things happen. Enough of the eraser, Tim. Okay, let's go back to the forehead and let's darken this up. So if you haven't done the whole thing with the if you haven't done the whole thing, you know, with the light mixture and everything, just make sure that, you know, when you go into the medium mixture that you have all the little values in there and the texture. So you don't want to, so let's say you decide to go in the medium mixture and not do the forehead yet. Well, too late, because you're going to try and do the light nuances of the forehead with the medium mixture. And you know what that means. Too dark, too early, too bad, too sad. And that's not what you want. So stay in that light mixture, because when you stay in that light mixture longer, you're going to see where you need to put more detail with that light mixture. It's going to work out. It really is. And what you think is white really isn't white. So you're going to go in with some texture, you know, putting in that really light gray. So, and you're just going to love how things evolve when you go light. So the combination of really nice hard edges using the paper shields, the freehand shields, and then total freehand right here, you know. And remember, you practice your distances, guys. So important, okay? Practice your distance. More important, I don't know where the whole thing of dagger strokes came from. I think it came from t-shirt painters. But as far as being a painter, you know, doing portraits, either animal portraits or landscapes or still lives, you definitely need to get your distance. You have to know what the distances are. It's just like if you're a musician, you want to know the chords, right? If you have a better understanding of the chords, then you can pick up songs better, those of you who are musically inclined. So think of it that way, you know. So if you know your distance, I want to get closer and I'm going to get darker. I want to go further away and I'm going to get a softer edge and lighter. That just makes total sense, right, guys? You know? And let's see. And we're just going to pull this over. What compressor am I using? Very good question. Now, it's California Air Tools. This is my smaller one. I have two. One in the other studio. They're both California Air Tools. The one I have is, let's see, what size is this bad boy? This one is the Ultra Quiet, and I believe it is 6 gallons, which is a good size. Anything 6 gallons is really good because it takes a while for that to fill up again, which is really good. John says, was he on the cone heads? Yeah, exactly, because what it is, I'm going to crop him over here because that's what the reference is. So yeah, so right now he kind of looks like that. But yeah, we'll just, that's where we're going to crop him. So yeah, no, he does look like a cone head there, that's for sure. But that's definitely not my intention. But he'll come together, and that's the whole thing, you know, is, you know, we just have to concentrate on the values here, and the rest will come. And it's good to have something like that. It keeps me from worrying about likeness too, John, you know, because that's a trap, you know, having it look like your person too early. So Todd says he has come to a point, if I don't show Tim my stuff, I'm going to stop showing my face. Oh, no, I love seeing your stuff, Todd. Your stuff is great. I really love it. So thanks for showing, and I think you're doing great. You know, the last stuff you showed me, Todd, was really very promising, very good. We're going to work on this little dark on the hair here, just a little bit. And you see he's starting to come together, but you know what? I'm not going to pay attention to that. I'm just paying attention to the values. I'm not going to pay attention to it. I'm not going to fall into that trap. And we're going to use our freehand shield here because it's a little bit darker on this edge. We're going to crawl along the surface, make sure we clean the freehand shield as we go. And there's a roundness going on here. So we want to make sure we get this roundness here. And you know, the pencil's your friend, so use your pencil to establish any kind of edges that you want to create, and then you could erase around it, and right here like that, and then you can bring that edge with the airbrush and then erase later. And then right here we have a lot going on, so we want to make sure that we pull this off. And we don't want to get too distracted. I do like to move around a lot, as you can see, but don't get too distracted from the job at hand, and right now is the forehead. And since we're at the forehead, let's work on this dark here. And this little triangle shape that's above the eye here. And once we get that shape, then we can worry about the value. And while we're here, let's use our freehand shield and get some of this really beautiful hard edge here. Remember, you always want to wipe off your freehand shield in between. You know, I say things over and over again because I want you, when you're painting, to say, okay, wipe off the freehand shield. All right, am I using the 1 second rule? I want me to be in your head when you're painting, just like my teacher, after all those years, is in my head when I'm painting, you know? And so that's so important. So definitely, you know, the Timisms are really for your benefit, guys. And, you know, because that's how I was trained. I was trained with the same thing. And Todd says, Tim, do you think you could airbrush 4 faces on that size of paper? Let me answer that question for you. Let's see if we have that latest piece here. I know you guys had seen it, but I'll pull it up for you. So look at the size of this painting right there. So, you know, I can work small. I love to work small. And so this is actually, right here is my golden size. When I'm doing full figure pastels, this size, like maybe like a 4-inch head, is my favorite to paint. You know, definitely by far my favorite to paint. Plus, seeing the amazing work of Mr. Leahy has inspired me to work even smaller. So I really love his live streams. They're really fantastic. If you haven't checked out his live streams, they are on Mondays at 6, and they're just amazing. You're going to learn new techniques, and you're going to, he's so giving with his technique, and I'll tell you, everyone who watches them, you know, like Brad and Todd and everybody, Chris, when you see his live streams, you'll come away a richer artist, you know, so with a lot of knowledge. And the great thing about Steve, which I really love, and in his live streams, is that how giving he is. He's extremely giving. And, in this day, you know, it's a leap of faith, right? You're like, oh my God, if I give it, then people are going to take my technique or whatever. But Steve knows that thing that, if he helps someone win, then he wins. And if you see his live streams, you'll definitely know exactly what I'm talking about. And that comes from the heart. And he inspires me to be even more giving with my live streams. And so it's so cool. So Mondays at 6. I couldn't make it. It was my birthday. I was at the supermarket. But I really, really try to make every one of them. I was able to peek my head in real quick, Joe says, mic drop. Monty says, every time that he paints, my voice reverberates through his head. That's funny. Thank you, sir. That's good. That's good. And it shows in your work. You're really paying attention to the technique. Thank you, Patty. I appreciate that. And your work inspires me too, Patty. So I appreciate that so much. So you see, little by little, Mr. Wonderful is making an appearance. But we're getting there. We're still like really light. Oh, so Steve says he was going to sing Happy Birthday on Monday. Didn't get the chance. Oh, no problem, my friend. No problem. Your happy birthday wish is very welcome. I appreciate that. Thank you. It's not every day that you turn 29, So it's okay. I'm 29. Not everyone. I hear silence. Are people unsubscribing? Oh, I went to go play with a cantaloupe. Well, I would definitely pick a honeydew melon rather than the cantaloupe. But yeah, I had a very nice birthday. So guess what? I can't go to the gym. So my mom and sister got me weights. So they're going to come in like a week or two. So I'll get back into shape. I have a bench and some dumbbells. And I'm excited about that. I should do a live stream of me doing airbrush while pumping iron. That would be great, Call it pumping iron and the trigger. And I'm just going to continue the texture, guys. Now we're getting pretty close to, the whole thing about the getting close to the medium mixture pretty soon. Usually around, week 4 or part 4 is when we start with the medium mixture. There's a lot of texture in his skin over here. And we're just going to pump the trigger with the 1 second rule. And we're just going to work that out. Trust ourselves to actually, find the right value. So I want that, it's a light right there. It's like a light gray. So I want to get that. Again, distance is going to let me darken that just slightly, right? And decrease my distance to get those darker values. And so remember, your pencil's your friend. So as I pull this up, I see that the darker hairs come out right here and then move in and over like that. I can erase that later. But what I'm going to do is just establish some of those darks. When I say darks, relative darks, because they're really quite light anyway, right? So we have the dark of the side plane of his face right here. And then there's some interesting information going right there by his ear. The lady in the produce area slapped him. Wow. Yeah, well, I'll tell you, I would get more than that. You know, it would be on video and people would hate me and, you know, I would get like, you know, -5 subscribers. Yeah, there's so much at stake. I'm not going to touch the lady in the produce section. That's for sure. And, okay, so look here. So let's see how this eraser is going to do. So I want to erase, oh my God, look at that. So we're able to kill off that pencil line right there. So we can really have a soft edge there. There we go. See how I can soften that up. But yeah, it looked white, but now under closer inspection, it's really quite gray. And then when we come in with the gray, and then later we can come in with a highlight and really make it, and make that highlight pop. And you use the 1 second rule because that's going to be your answer to everything. And I won't, no way, Todd. You're one of us, so you can't be banned. You're unbannable. You see how we can develop that ear? But also realize that it's not white, and then we have a lot of wiggle room to lighten things up later and bring things forward and push things back later. So I think that's really good. And so this has been, so I started airbrushing today at 10 o'clock and probably airbrushed, this is probably like hour number 8 of me airbrushing today. I'm finishing up a commission, and so that's, and then doing my personal stuff, and then this live stream. But I'll tell you, I love it. So it really is a labor of love. So I found myself, like on Saturday, I had some free time. And you know what I did on my free time? I went ahead and did some airbrushing. So that's funny. Oh, so you see right here, remember how that was that ridge when we saw we had seen the skull? So that's where that's coming from. But remember, this isn't white, this is a light gray. So get our values right and make sure that we don't leave things voided out that should not be voided out, right? And that's quite important. And so we do have the lips in here, and we can work on that. Oh, wow. So Willie says it's already looking awesome. I really appreciate that. Thank you. And I'm going to continue moving around. We got a nice feeling going of this. So I'm going to try and lighten the edge here of the mouth because it's very soft edged here on the lips, and I want to establish that. So I'm going to soften this edge here, and then we're going to come in and be a little more wispy with the mouth. So if I want a soft edge, I'm going to increase my distance. If I want a harder edge, I'm going to decrease my distance. Am I right, guys? So again, this whole class, but live stream. And this is great because this is like a class for those who can't afford it right now to take my, my workshops, but that's okay. So I'll definitely help out those who can't, right? And so that's why you'll get a lot from my live streams. So I want that to be, I definitely want to teach you guys one-on-one so I can really take you to the very next level. And so that's what we want to do, right? So next week is Mr. Todd's birthday. So he takes Venmo. You take PayPal? Wow, that's great. So what day is your birthday? So we know. Is it going to be on Wednesday? We'll definitely make sure we celebrate that next week. So you see how by softening up those lips, it really did wonders, right? It really did. And again, what you think's a voided area really isn't. There's a lot going on there. And like I say, we got to get Mr. Wonderful to look like Mr. Wonderful so he can say, hey, that's a good looking portrait when he comes on the live stream in the next week. I have a feeling he's going to be here either this week or next week. We're going to see him there in the comments, and Mr. Wonderful is going to say, wow, that's a really nice painting. So let's keep that really positive vibes going, that he's actually going to see it. And for no other reason, just for him to see it would be really cool, for no other reason. And so right here I can see I'm getting a little overzealous here. So you see how I put in a shadow on this side, but there really isn't, right? I put in that shadow on this side. It's really on this side, but not here. So that's where the 1 second rule is going to bail us out. And this eraser is going to bail us out because it's going to get rid of those pencil lines that normally would be a pain in the neck to try and get away, So that's really good. And let's continue, guys. And always, if you feel something a little bit weird, it's usually a little bit of tip dry. Now, tip dry with this, and also why, my custom job, why I have this is because I can access the needle a lot easier. If you have the other type of backing, you can't get to that needle. See that? You can't get to it. So here, you can get to it. That's why. So, everything that I do to these airbrushes are specific purposes to make a better painting and make you a better painter. So, those who purchase my airbrushes, they're waiting for them. I got the parts. They're going to be there soon. So thank you so much. And I know you're going to love these airbrushes because they are the 13th. That's my mom's birthday. Very cool. So look, I'm out of light mixture again. That's how much I'm painting today. So really, I've been painting quite a bit with the light mixture, getting a lot of texture in there. So I hope what you take away from tonight's live stream is that, so what I'm going to do for you, we're going to work that out, and we're going to get you some of those erasers, Willie, okay? Because they're really great. So we'll work that out for you, sir. And I'll email you letting you know how to get them. So don't worry, Willie. And so, I have a bunch of these erasers. I have them on my website. If you're interested, you can go on the website, guys, or email me and I'll take care of you. I always take care of my peeps. There we go. So now, I made those little changes, the tip dry, and then twirled the needle a little bit, but also the fact that I was running out of ink. That was the main reason. And then remember, whenever you fill up on ink, you just want to do a quick test before you put it on the, oh, look at that, Willie, he just paints perfectly. Willie, yeah, I can imagine. I think that is true, I think you, who needs erasers, right? Not you guys, that's for sure. Only Tim. I'm the only one who needs erasers. So we got to keep from getting fixated, right? So we're going to move around. And we're going to look for the middle tones and everything like that. And so right here in the neck, let's see what we can do with that. If we can get rid of, sort of kill those pencil lines, which is nice. Think of pencil lines as training wheels. You need those training wheels in the beginning to get your bearings. Same thing, the pencil lines. We need those pencil lines in the beginning for the guidelines, but then once they are no longer a purpose, we need to get rid of them. So you see how we got rid of that, guys? So that eraser is the bomb. And so, you know, those who haven't tried it yet, those who did try it, you definitely can see the difference. And you know what? I'm not sure how it works with other surfaces, but I know that it works amazing with this surface. So, Mr. Wonderful, there he is. And so you remember when we had that dark of the in between the lips, and we were like, oh my God, that's so dark. But look, as we started working today, it sort of comes into right into line, right? It sort of, now here's what's interesting, right here, it sort of goes up at a steep angle. So we're going to increase that angle. And that's when we're not worrying about looking like him. We're just worrying about angles and values. So squinting our eyes and seeing, oh, it's much darker here in this quadrant of the upper lip. So we're just going to put that there. And then you can see how this is here. And then right here, which is quite interesting, it kind of disappears into the upper area of the lip. So you see how this sort of, there's no edge here. And remember, with our minds, we want to create edges because there should be, right? So we have to fight that proclivity, propensity to go ahead and try and put in detail that's not there. Because our mind is like, hey, you know, the nose has to have the two nostrils, and that same thing with the eyes. They need eyelashes, and the whites of the eye need to be white. But when we get away from that, that's when things happen, you know? And Mike says, oh yes, that's true. That is pretty funny. So yeah, so we're going to look for little details here. And also, when you watch my live streams, I want you to see how I go from one tool to another. And you want to also make sure that you utilize the tools, because every tool, every eraser has a weakness and a strength. Play to those weaknesses and play to those strengths and avoid using them during the weakest areas where, let's say, an aggressive eraser might tear into the paper, but a soft eraser can do subtleties, right? Aggressive eraser can get rid of dark, deep pencil lines, but a soft eraser won't work. So definitely want to go from one to another when you can. You know, you want to have that sort of, you know, moving quick from one material to the next, one tool to the next. Having lots of weapons in your repertoire, your arsenal. And again, you know, if you start seeing that it doesn't look like him, don't worry. Keep reminding yourself, we don't care about likeness. We don't care about likeness. That's one of the mantras. We don't care about likeness. When you're getting nervous and it doesn't look like him, maybe in the third or fourth hour, it looks like her, tell yourself, we don't care about likeness. Go back to the program, right? Just worry about the values, worry about the edges, worry about the shapes, right? That's the worst thing. That's going down the wrong road, right? That's listening to the voices in your head saying, it doesn't look like him, you must fix it. You know, look at that eye, I'm going to focus on that eye, I'm going to go crazy. Before I know it, the eye is way ahead of everything else, and it's just a disaster part one, right? So, and also we can see how much darker the skin is of the neck, the value of the neck is than the than the collar. So we're going to use our freehand shield and significantly darken the neck area. 1 second rule is still in effect. So let's see. So looks more like Lori without hair. You mean Lori Grenier from Shark Tank? I like Lori Grenier. She's a doll. She's so nice. And she's one of my favorite. And Barbara's great, Barbara Corcoran. You can see I watch Shark Tank a lot, right? I mean, for me, guys, Shark Tank really inspires me that, you know, even with the most simplest of idea, you could change the world in a sense. You can create jobs, and that's a really nice, a nice dream. And who knows? I mean, do you guys out there have some really good ideas that if you put it to business, something would happen? You know, Tim, do you have a certain place that you keep your reference pictures, or just Google? Well, what I do is I do subdirectories, right? So I'll go into pictures, and then I'll have a subdirectory for, let's say, a subfolder for Jean Harlow or Jean Tierney, or a subdirectory for someone who poses for me, and I'll put their name there, and that helps a lot. I don't keep them in Google, I save them, and I only save high resolution photographs. And I think the lowest resolution I'll ever go would be like maybe 400 by 600, and that's only in desperation. But usually I like to work with at least 800 DPI. Otherwise, you're just going to have a hard time getting the. You're going to have a very hard time getting the details. Now, as you can see here. Here is the folder for Mr. Wonderful, and what I do is I have all the, you know, the papers I have, and at the end I'll put it in here. But I rarely work from a photo in person. You know, I rarely work from a photo. I usually work from the computer using PureRef, so I hope that helps. But as far as my reference photos, I always put them in subdirectories and pictures. Now, Willie, do you have a regular PC, or are you a Mac guy? But if you have a regular PC, then, you know, it's a lot easier than you think. Mac, I don't know how that works. I'm not a Mac guy. I've always been a PC guy. So, as you can see, I think, you know, we have a lot of room here for this dark, the cast shadow of his nose. And we're going to work on that right now. And it's kind of difficult because everything is in shadow here. So we're going to start with the larger shapes and try and get this cast shadow on from his nose. That, remember, the light is coming from the upper left, and the nose is going to cast a shadow to the lower right. So we're going to look into that. And so you see we're going to start here. We're going to have this shape, and then we're going to have this little triangle shape here, and this comes out. And we are going to work on this large shape here. And you know, you want anchor points, right? So my anchor point is going to be the darkest shape here. And then I'm going to do the middle tone, which is right next to it. And this might be a good chance to go ahead and, you know, get rid of some pencil lines that might be in the way. And just like anything else, you know, you wanna work on pressure, right? You don't want to put pressure in if it's a light pencil line. You want to put light pressure. You want to tear into the paper unless you have to. And Patty says she can use a Mac and a PC. Okay, that's good. Basically the same in folders. That's good to know. So very cool. And so you see we're just going to start. Now here, this corner of his mouth just sort of disappears. Just sort of disappears right over here. There's more lower lip here. And we're just going to try and look at this shape here. That's all we're going to do is look at that shape and make sure we get that. Doesn't have to be perfect right away. That comes in time, you know. Doesn't have to happen right away. It can happen slowly. Actually, it's best to happen slowly. So now we're going to look at this little bit of a light shape that's right here. And how I can really gauge it is to see where it actually fits. So here you have the corner of the mouth, and this actually doesn't start till right about here. So we're going to go ahead and adjust that. And notice I did not come in with the media mixture at all today because we're working on shapes and texture, right? And making sure we get those voided areas and make sure they're not white. Even though our mind wants to see that, we're going to make sure it's not. And then we have this shape right here that comes down. It's a little bit darker. A lot of things going on over here. A lot of things. And so we're just going to really try and get those larger shapes and sneak in some texture. But you want to build it. You want to build it from your darkest value here, and then your mid-tone, which is right next to it, or transition tone. And then you can squint your eyes and ask yourself, okay, self, is it too dark or too light in relation to the other values? And that will definitely, you can answer that as you're painting. And if you ever get overzealous, and there are times when that does happen, then you can start erasing a little bit. Steve Johnson, good to see you. Pit Pastel's come in about 2 weeks, my friend. Thank you so much, Steve. I appreciate that. And definitely I appreciate that. Thank you, Steve. So who won the pet portrait? I know you were having a drawing. How did that go, sir? And remember, you want to use the eraser that will do the job. You don't want to use you don't want to overkill, right? You don't want to use an elephant gun to go mouse hunting. So, you know, you always want to use the eraser that is going to do the job, and don't overdo it, right? So always use the eraser that's going to do the job the best. And we'll go ahead and come back there. And so little by little, what time is it? 11:12. So we're doing pretty good. So what's the night? Yes, in 2 weeks. That's probably when it's going to happen, you know, as far as the pit. Not my birthday, but coming in with the white. My birthday was the 7th. Yeah, so there, you know, Mr. Wonderful's starting to make an appearance, but we don't care yet. We'll care in a couple of weeks whether we got Mr. Wonderful, right, guys? And a couple of weeks we'll say, okay, it looks like it doesn't look like him, little by little. I know when I come into the eyes, but I'm not going to rush it. And so now what we can do is went great so far, and half the proceeds are going to Pet Rescue. I love to hear that. That is great. Oh, yes, that's right. So that's going in the book, Willie? That's good. That's right. We don't care about likenesses at all. It's going to happen when it happens. We'll worry about that later. And if nothing else, we can always say, hey, that's a good picture of a guy, you know, or a girl. And they'll be like, oh, okay. So we can always change our tune and say it's someone else. Be like, wow, that's a really good Burt Reynolds. I'm like, thank you, you know. They don't have to know I was trying to do Mr. Wonderful, right? So what's the worst possible thing if you're following the the light and dark rule, things will fall into place anyway, right? You follow a procedure, you'll have a good looking painting. Might not look like the person you're painting, but like I said, is that really the worst thing that could happen? No. It could look like the person and be a dreadful painting, so, you know. And as you can see, I'm just going to, yeah, look how light I'm making the forehead there. I mean, the light in the eye here. I can definitely calm that down. And then, remember the eye looked really super dark, so we can go ahead back into that eye and start darkening up again, right? And then we're going to do the same on the other eye, in the iris. Start darkening that up again. And now, starting to get a little bit happy. Not too happy. A little bit happy with the painting. You know, we don't want to start congratulating ourselves just yet. You know, like that one part in Pulp Fiction, we can't say it, but where he says we don't want to start doing you know what already, you know, so I think that's important, you know, to definitely keep our heads in the game. Play for 4 quarters, right? Every ball game is 9 innings. Got to play the whole 9 innings. Okay, so I'm a little bit overzealous here with this light, this dark here. I'm going to calm that down. And then, see, we have this shape. Drawings on the 19th. Oh, fantastic. So how much is it to put in the drawing, my friend, so I can look into it? And maybe I can tell some friends? Anything to help the pets and my friend Steve. I love animals. They're the best friends in the world, aren't they? They really are. Well, if Mr. Wonderful comes to my live stream, he will be one of the best friends ever. So, Mr. Wonderful, if you're out there, just poke your head in and say, hey, that's a wonderful painting. I would love to hear from you. Like Wayne Gretzky says, you keep shooting at the net, eventually it's going to go in. At this point of the painting, it could be William Shatner. Oh, what do you mean? Spock. That's right. It could be William Shatner. That's true. That is true. And that's it. You know, we're just going to stick with the program, Joe, and we don't care what it looks like just yet. But we'll get there because we're light detectives. And so we're just worrying about what the light is doing, the modus operandi of the light, how it's affecting different areas. And that's going to be where we're going to solve the mystery of painting Mr. Wonderful in India ink and airbrush. So, it's like being Columbo or someone like that, right? So that's what we're going to do. We're just going to stick with this. And, you know, there's a lot of really good things that are happening right now. And a lot of really nice technique. So, Todd, have a good night, my friend. Always a pleasure. Straight from San Diego. Sunny San Diego, right? It was actually snowing here in Jersey. Did you guys get snow out there, Willie? Because I'd say it was snow flurries, right, Roy? If you're still out there, yeah, Roy said he got flurries by him. He's more south than me. In Jersey, but we're not too far away from each other. And also Bill Snagan, he's from Jersey too, so we got quite a bit of Jersey people here, you know. And Mr. Leahy, I did see pictures of your show that you had a year ago, right? Was it in Sloutsburg or somewhere like that? You had a show of your paintings? That must have been amazing. Oh, Willie, you had just a little bit of snow. Our first real snowstorm is pretty late in the States, isn't it, this year, Willie, right? in the Northeast where we are, I should say. Ah, so you see, see how where that ends really does a lot to bring out the character of Mr. Wonderful here. Look how that eraser really does the trick, guys. And I'm not doing this to say, hey, buy this eraser. I'm saying, like, this is really going to make your life a lot easier. And that's the thing. I mean, like with a lot of things, people using those synthetic papers, and I think this is definitely leveling the playing field, especially in this late stage right here. And we're going to pull up some of these lights here, and let's make this happen. And believe it or not, I love winter too, Willie. The only thing I worry about are the animals getting cold. That's the only thing I worry about, and not having food. Otherwise, I would love it to be winter all the time. The stray cats and the stray dogs, that makes me sad, and the little birdies and stuff. But yeah, I do love the winter. I love the, putting up the heat in the morning and having the coffee going, smelling that heat, just great. That makes me happy. So I'm definitely a winter person too, my friend. So look at that, it's 11:20. Did this live stream go fast, or is it just me? But I felt it went fast. As I have such a wonderful time with everybody, and I'm spoiled with you guys. So I'm just getting rid of some pencil lines when I can, right? Get rid of them. Now, they used to be really tough to get rid of, but now they're really coming off pretty easily. Pretty darn easy. And same thing here. We definitely can kind of kill those pencil lines. But remember, don't kill the pencil lines before you actually use them as guidelines, Thanks, Willie. And, oh, look at that. Steve loves the thunder. Wow, I won't steal your thunder there, Steve, right? I love that expression. Hey, you're trying to steal my thunder. That cracked me up when I first heard it. And let's see. So we're going to work on this area right here. And we do have more pencil lines to eradicate. That sounds violent. Eradication of the pencil lines. Wow, sounds like you're, reading something very serious. So now it's time to eradicate the pencil lines. Oh boy. Oh, Brad says he's really looking good so far. Thank you, my friend. I appreciate that, Brad. And Steve says, which Steve is leaving? Oh, look at that. John got 2 inches today. He's from upstate New York, which is a little ways from me north. So 2 inches. Yes, be careful, my friend, when you go out there, John. And so Steve Johnson, have a great night. You're the Steve that's leaving. Thank you so much for hanging out, my friend. And Patty, you have a great night as well. I know you have to get up early for work, so thank you so much for hanging out with us. And I really appreciate that. And we appreciate you, Patty. Wendy, are you still here? No, she's still not feeling well. She might have left. Let's see if Wendy's still out there. Wendy! Where are you, Wendy? Oh, Wendy left. She's not 100% yet, but she's doing better, thank goodness. That COVID-19 hits home, right? It really does hit home. Okay, if the airbrush is not working the way you want, just do those couple of things. There you go. Perfect. And then it does exactly what you want. So over a period of time when you're painting, you'll know when it's not doing exactly what you want. You might have tip dry, or you might have to just spray it out, you know, that sort of thing. So know that here's a checklist when it's not working well. Tip dry, loosen the chucking nut, spray out. You do a good spray out real quick. Before you tighten the chucking nut, twirl it, and you know, put the needle forward, twirl a little bit, and then tighten the chucking nut. Those three, 99.9% of the time, is going to be your answer. Okay? And that's going to happen when you're painting, especially a long time like me, 2 hours, you know, pretty much non-stop. So we're doing the compressor's going off a lot. I already used about a cupful total of ink. So yeah, so when you paint a lot, you're going to have that. But know that it's just a little problem, and those three things, if you do that, is going to solve that problem for you. So we have this darker value that comes down right here from the side of the face, but the dark value is not going to show up unless you put the lighter value next to it. And we're just going to put a lighter value right there. And you see how, you know, this is still his zygomatic arch that's coming here, so we definitely have to establish that right here. And you can see how it's coming down. But when we darkened it and we didn't put the adjacent value next to it, it wouldn't show up. But you see how that shows up? It's not so much the value or the color of the value, but what's next to it that really gives it power, right? So if we have the nostril come down over here, we want it to come forward, then we can put a dark, but we also have to make sure we put a corresponding light next to it. That's what's going to make the difference. Remember, it's simultaneous contrast. It's what's next to it that makes the difference. So we're still in the light mixture, and what we're going to do, remember, your pencil's your friend. Use your pencil. And so if I want to go ahead and draw this in, it's going to be infinitely better for me to do it with a pencil, because I've been drawing with a pencil since I was 3 years old. So same with you. I'm sure you've been using a pencil for a lot longer than you've been using an airbrush. So why use a tool, you know, that isn't the best for you? So definitely do that. No shame in the game. But you see how I'm bringing that nose forward, and I can do it better by establishing it with the pencil than going in. So to me, that's a win-win situation. And you know, if it makes a better painting, who cares what people think? You know, I use airbrush 100%. No one cares. Use whatever tools you need to do the best job for you. Okay, guys? There are no rules here. Just rules of making good paintings, right? That's the main thing. So, you know, if you need to use the pencil, you need to use the paintbrush, use it. You know, that's the best advice I can say. Use what feels most comfortable to you, especially when it comes to detail. See, I can erase that line now. That was there, right? The pencil line, because it did its job. Now it's bringing that nose forward, and that's cool. So Willie says, good night, everyone. Thanks so much. Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you so much, Willie. I appreciate the birthday wishes and everything. You are the best, my friend. And I will see you next week. And I will email you on those erasers so we can work that out. And Joe says, oh, thank you so much. Brad says, great session. Have a great night. Good to talk to you, Brad. You're the best. And let's see. Joe says, Tim, is it safe to assume when you switch to the medium mixture ink, it is for the medium values, then dark, so you won't use until you go over? Yes. Basically, what's going to happen, though, when I come in with the medium mixture here, Joe, it's going to darken everything up. And when that happens, the medium mixture, the medium values are going to darken up. So I'm going to use the medium values here. but then I'm probably going to use the medium mixture here as well. And then I'm going to do the 2 airbrush method where I would have one with the light mixture, one with the medium mixture, so I can go back and forth. So it's important to have 2 airbrushes going when we go into the medium mixture. And we'll see that next week. So great question, Joe. I really appreciate your question. So yes, so everything's looking dark, but once we come with that medium mixture, it's going to throw everything out the window and not everything out the window, but it's going to change the values and we're going to catch up. So, oh, good night, my friend. And it's cool that you're hanging till the end, John. I appreciate that. Mike says, since time is about up, I'll bid everyone a good night. Thank you so much, and have a great dinner, Mike. Always a pleasure. Great comments, sir. Great comments, everybody. I really appreciate yous. You guys rock. Oh my God, it's 11:30, so you know what that means? I turn into a pumpkin. So I hope everyone has a great night. So this is Mr. Wonderful thus far. So we are getting there. And so we are probably going to do, next week, we'll probably do a little more of using the paper shields to revisit some of the edges, get the dark of his shirt, and maybe come in with the white shirt, and then the medium mixture. So it's going to be great. Have a great night, guys. Raul and everybody, you guys rock. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't. That's always a great thing. There's going to be a speed painting coming this week, so stay tuned on the live stream. Take care, Joe. Thanks for everything. Let me go ahead and end this stream. Let's see.